Well, hey, that's a great segue, Will. Let's get
Yeah,
into
I
last
didn't
night.
plan that.
Yeah, so last night was very special. We had quite a bit of activity on the uh, weather front, I should say. So, what do we want to start with? Uh,
Yeah,
Storm
I guess
reports?
we can do that. Yeah, just kind of go over an overview of what kind of happened yesterday.
All right.
Yesterday was a moderate risk day from the SPC. So if you think about it on a scale, it's a 4 out of 5. So up there in terms of severe risk. The leading thought was we would have initial supercells forming, so storms that could potentially produce tornadoes because they have rotating updrafts, forming in the Texas Panhandle east of Amarillo. And that kind of did happen. These storms were racing off to the east, though, at about 80 miles an hour. I mean, these things were moving. But then the thinking was that it would transform into more of a linear event. So it become just kind of a squall line of storms that would push off. And that would create sort of a very short-lived tornado threat. So you'd have quick spin-ups on the leading edge of that. But unfortunately, that didn't. It happened, but it also didn't. We got some embedded. They're called QLCS tornadoes, quasi-linear convective system, which is just a fancy word for squall line. Um, we had a few of those tornadoes, but then unfortunately, um, we had a segment of the line that actually kind of transformed into an embedded supercell within this line. So it was an actual supercell that was just connected to this line
Hmm.
that produced a fairly significant tornado for, believe it or not, the Norman, Oklahoma region. For those who don't know, the University of Oklahoma is located in Norman. Luckily, campus was spared. It formed about miles south of campus and nearly hit the believe it or not, the National Weather Center. It almost hit the Weather Center.
Hmm.
Hit a few student housing complexes off to the east of campus. Not student housing, they're not technically sanctioned by the university, but they're largely lived in by students. And it was a pretty violent tornado that moved off to the north and east, and eventually hit the Shawnee, Oklahoma area, which unfortunately it's kind of their second big hit in less than a year. They got hit by a pretty large multi-vortex tornado back in, I want to say it was early May last year. But yeah, it was a pretty eventful event. I know there's parts of Norman on the south side. For those who don't know, or those who do know, on the south side there's a Walmart. Kind of State Highway 9 runs through there. That whole area has kind of been blocked off due to some damage and blocking the roads.
Hmm.
So pretty significant event for Norman. It's probably the closest call campus has
Yeah.
had in a while.
And what's interesting is there's a bit of a urban myth about a so-called Norman bubble, which is that severe weather happens around Norman and everywhere in Oklahoma but Norman. But I believe this kind of I think this kind of counts for disproving that.
Oh, yeah, it definitely
Obviously,
counts. This is the
that's
kind of
just
stuff that everyone thinks happens in more.
obviously that's just kind of a meme. But so I've pulled up here. It's SPC storm reports. These are preliminary reports, so they're not certified yet. But this is just what uh, this is just what like the storm spotters and
Do you want to share this
emergency
on
managers.
Discord too, so we can see it?
It should be on Discord.
Is it? Let's see.
Yeah, it's on Discord.
Okay. Oh, yep. I'm just not bright.
So yeah, so here's the total. This is preliminary, right? They haven't certified these. Yeah, preliminary. So only 9 tornado reports, and I say only because I'm looking up here at the Texas Panhandle, and I saw, because I have family in the Texas Panhandle, so I was keeping an eye on it. Um, but I saw that there were several tornado warnings for that area. So I'm a little surprised that there weren't any reports. I guess what that tells me is that all that was radar indicated and was probably obscured by wind, debris, and rain.
Yeah, I
If
think.
there was anything.
Yeah, I was watching some streams out there, namely Reed Timmer and some of the News 9 and Oklahoma Chasers. It looked very high precipitation with a lot of hail. There was definitely a decent wall cloud at one point just to the southeast of Amarillo, south of I-40.
Yes, I
Um,
saw a video
but
of that as well.
but I'm not sure if it ultimately produced anything.
Actually, oh man, I forgot to. So we before the stream we had kind of compiled some of the pictures from these events. One I meant to send was from my mother. She actually got a pretty good picture of a wall cloud from Pampa, where we live. Um, I don't really have time to try and pull that up now, but it's so yeah. That was last night.